Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN Monday night, February 9, 2009. We are live here on 540 ESPN and ESPNMilwaukee.com, also at PWRshow.com. Thank you so much for joining us. What an action-packed show we have for you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a full review of last night's Against All Odds pay-per-view from TNA, a preview of this Sunday's WWE No Way Out pay-per-view, and a detailed analysis on the Chris Jericho fan attack incident from this past weekend, and, of course, more detailed conversation on the wrestling news of the week, including the problems that we see with TNA right now as far as character development goes. We are live, as I said, Monday night, February 9, 2009. Thank you for joining us wherever you are, and you can join us as well here live on the phone lines at 276-ESPN, 276-3776, all over southeastern Wisconsin, and all over the world at 1-800-990-ESPN, 1-800-990-3776, also at PWRshow.com. The live shout box is up and running along with the chatmosphere. Shadowsphere. Damian Nelson here with the man they call Meathead, the Kaz, and our newest correspondent, the man you know very well, Dave Hero. Welcome, guys, to this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report. That's where you talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had to catch a breath. You all should know this. I expect maybe Dave not to catch on right away, but everybody else would know.
Damian loves to hear the sound of his own voice. I mean,
I'm a mark for myself.
Yeah, he starts off the first 10 minutes talking about how I'm Damian Nelson and blah, 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 as we sit over here.
I'm just waiting to see Meathead to get all upset about the chatosphere.
Don't you start. It's the chatmosphere. I only need one person in the studio illiterate.
Hey, don't get hot. Just if you're hot, say you're hot.
Let's talk about TNA Against All Odds on pay-per-view just last night from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. Obviously, the big match on this card was for the World Heavyweight Championship. Several titles defended, yet none changed hands. Match by match, the opener was for the X Division Championship as Alex Shelley, the champion, went up against Eric Young. This was an excellent match with a bizarre ending that could have been explained after the head bump that was taken by by Eric Young on the top turnbuckle. It was sort of a silence from Mike Tenay and Don West, then a quick pin after no finisher. Sort of odd finish to the match, in my opinion, but a solid match, a match that ended up being the match of the night between these two X Division superstars. And then a completely opposite situation as Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner got in the ring with Little Papa Pump, Little Petey Pump, Petey Williams. This match was painful until the end, where we saw the return, Dave Hero, of the Steiner Screwdriver.
About time, Scott
Steiner Screwdriver? Is that what it's called now?
Actually, you remember that from WCW?
Yeah, but it wasn't called the Steiner Screwdriver.
What was it called?
Steiner Recliner?
No.
No.
It was called
the pile driver finish. Yeah. Steiner Screwdriver. Done so because he was so motivated by the fans at ringside hating him. He was being exuded upon with a lot of hate from the TNA Impact Zone audience.
Anybody use their cell phone video to record it?
Don't know, but I will tell you it was a hot crowd down in Orlando on Sunday night for the pay-per-view. Shows you the difference between fans who go with the intention of seeing a TNA show and those who walk in off the street who are just theme park guests who did not necessarily have the intention of seeing the show. Hot crowd, a true TNA crowd, not the theme park crowd, as I said, that really let the workers know what they thought about them, and they did so to Scott Steiner tremendously during this matchup. Steiner, of course, taking issue with some of the fans at ringside, being quite vocal with his dissatisfaction of them after hitting the Steiner Screwdriver. Scott Steiner, in my opinion, at this point in his career, is just a big muscle flopping around in the ring.
You know, I made a movie like that once called Big Muscle Flopping Around.
Frank and Dave, I'm sure you all have educated things to say.
Well, you made the point. He's getting to a point in his career where, look at me. This is all I can do right now. Just look at me. Now, but as a wrestling professional, and I put that in quotes, anything to do with fans and on a pay-per-view, you got to use your cool at something. You want to play with the crowd, that's fine, but eventually it's going to throw you off what you have to do in the ring. And I think it's just getting to a point where TNA is probably thinking, how long in this guy's contract do we have here?
Scott Steiner's there because, he has one last run, one last good payday, and he can get away with those kind of things with the fans in the front row on a pay-per-view, which he can't do on a TV taping. So sometimes, the fans want to get that reaction. They want to see that.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily true because Scott Steiner, when they were on WCW Nitro a couple of weeks ago, during the whole NWO takeover of, the Main Event Mafia takeover on Impact, Steiner was on the mic doing the ring announcing, and he can get away with that.
Still to come as well tonight, two things I missed, of course. We've got two big guests with us this week. First is Greg Gagne. Greg Gagne will be with us in just a few moments right here on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. And then later on, we will be joined by Al Snow. Two big superstars here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Greg Gagne and Al Snow. But continuing along, talking about TNA Against All Odds from this past Sunday, Brutus Magnus in his second match in TNA went up against Chris Sabin, who accepted the open challenge. A decent match. Magnus has some potential if they get all that crap off of him, in my opinion. Obviously, Magnus coming from the UK version of the Gladiators, American Gladiators, and did come out and won that matchup against Chris Sabin, who was impressive as always. The Knockouts Championship was on the line as Awesome Kong took on Frank's dear friend, ODB. It was a solid match. It was short, but I thought it was enough as Awesome Kong retained. As you know, Awesome Kong working with a couple of injuries, one being in her knee, the other in her back. And this match was short, many would say due to that reason, but a well-done match, I think, as far as the knockouts go. Booker T defended his Legends Championship against Shane Sewell. Who? He's a referee. Who? Oh, wait, no, he's a wrestler.
He used to be a wrestler from Puerto Rico.
Who? But now he's a referee. Wait, no, he's a wrestler. Wait, no, he's a referee. I get confused. No one cared about this
match. Let's put this on the pay-per-view, and that stuff bothers me.
Well, let's talk about what happened afterwards.
What happened afterwards, which was the beatdown and then the return to TV, anyways, of Samoa Joe, who seemingly has a bit of a grief now with Booker T.
Well, simply because he can't have a grief with.
Are you sure? Are you reading that right? Didn't Booker T have an issue with AJ Styles, and wasn't Samoa Joe with the issue with Scott Steiner? Have you read your notes?
Yes, I'm just trying to get so quickly through this. We've got 8 minutes left in this segment. Two callers on the line. Okay. Greg Gagne coming up as well.
I understand. I just want the facts straight. That's all. Get the facts straight.
AJ Styles making the save. You are correct.
Was it a phenomenal save?
You just wanted to ring that bell. That's what it was. But anyways, Shane Sewell.
Shane Sewell.
Sorry. I know another gentleman with the last name Sewell, and I'm trying to keep myself from saying it. But
just call him the Glamour Boy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. This guy's just done. I have no desire, nor do the fans, to see him wrestle again.
Well, you're forgetting that Dutch Mantell is one of the writers for TNA.
Dirty Dutch Mantell.
Who is also one of the bookers in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is where Shane, was a big star. Yeah. The Good Old Boy Network is still alive in TNA wrestling.
Matt Morgan took on Abyss. Morgan, who came off of recent surgery, but did indeed perform in the match with Abyss. I like Matt Morgan a lot better as a heel than I do a face.
Yeah. Matt Morgan still has the look, and I think if they allow him to work a little bit more in the ring, again, he's not really allowed to do much.
The only way Matt Morgan's going to get over is if he beats some of the main event Mafia, and that's not going to happen anytime soon.
That match, well done. Not Charles Robinson. We were talking about referees on the TV taping earlier, but Rudy Charles, the referee, took the biggest bump of the match with a chair shot to the head. But here's the thing. Then another ref comes out, I think it was Slick Robinson, never checks on Charles, makes a count that didn't result in 3, and stays in the whole match, finishes
Johnson,
the match.
By the way.
Yes, that's what I said.
It's Slick Robinson.
Johnson, sorry. And
I'll just correct you all night. That'll be okay.
Stays in the whole match and makes the count, everything, leaves at the end of the match. No one ever checks on the referee, who's laying there practically dead. I mean, that's just, frustrating.
That's your TNA.
The basics. Beer Money, the tag team champions, up against the Lethal Consequences, team of Jay Lethal and Consequences Creed. Another solid match, probably the second best match on the card. Well done by both teams, and again, very entertaining. We've talked a long time about how impressive Beer Money has been over the course of the last few months and continues to be. So just seeing that match again was well worth it on the pay-per-view. A match that didn't deliver, in my opinion, was the main event. Brother Ray and Brother Devon taking on Angle and Sting, Kurt Angle and Sting, the world title on the line, Sting's world title on the line. This match less than expected, but not horrible. Sting getting the pin ultimately over Brother Ray, and Foley coming in and making the awkward title presentation to Sting. So overall, a couple of highlights from the pay-per-view. Again, that opening contest between Alex Shelley and Eric Young for the X Division Championship. But a couple of noteworthy things as well. The fans being clearly against Steiner, Brutus Magnus, he's got to lose that gimmick. The production was off a bit last night as well. It didn't seem like the camera people knew where to be. And Kurt Angle dropping an S-bomb on the air. We've got callers all over the place. Let's start with Maryland. Sultan, you are live here on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN.
Damian Nelson, it's a pleasure to be back again on the show. And Meathead, how you doing, bro?
We're doing fine. Are you the Sultan from the movie The Wrestler?
Actually, unfortunately, I haven't seen the movie, but I'll see the movie soon. But it's great to see Ric Flair coming back. You know, the Nature Boy is back, like always.
What's your question, Sultan?
My questions, actually, I don't have any questions, actually. I just have this, that I'm very happy that TNA, this time, they have given a great show. Like last time I watched Impact, and I was really pleased because last 3 shows, they were, like, pretty much bad because right now I'm a diehard TNA fan. Like after,
good to hear.
Yeah, I am, exactly. Yes, I am.
8 solid matchups on that card. Whether you liked all the matches or not, they gave you a lot of wrestling on that show last night, TNA Against All Odds on pay-per-view. Thank you so much for calling, Sultan from Maryland. Let's now go to New York on the East Coast. Elliot, you are live on 540 ESPN and the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, guys. Good evening.
What's up, Elliot?
It's good to hear from all you guys, and I'm glad to have Dave Hero back.
That's right,
my
man.
Do you have a question for us, Elliot?
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you guys. It's obvious that TNA is trying to rebuild their X division by bringing Brutus Magnus and Shane Sewell, and hopefully debuting Doug Williams one day as a full-time superstar or wrestler, whatever they call them over there. And you know they're trying, and obviously that the main event Mafia frontline feud will end at Lethal Lockdown. The 2 teams, one will end, whatever, and all that. Once the whole thing is over and they get past this whole WCW Nitro phase of the company and try to go back to its roots, what feuds are you looking forward to? They try to make once all this is done. Because I'm looking forward to them trying to get together Team 3D and Beer Money, or I really want to see old school Samoa Joe beat down guys relentlessly, just with no talking, just tear guys apart.
Yeah, Elliot, you hit the nail on the head. TNA's got to go back to their roots. We're going to talk in detail about some of the character development problems in TNA later on in this program, but they got to go back to their roots, and I, for one, would love to see a matchup between the Team 3D and Beer Money. I think you got some legs there. Samoa Joe coming back as the monster he needs to be. Abyss still has a ton of potential that I don't think they're fully utilizing.
I'm begging for an Abyss McFoley thing where McFoley begs for the hardcore, a real hardcore challenge from Abyss. I'm begging for a situation like that. They have so much storyline laying around.
You'll be begging for a long time, Elliot. I'm telling you right now, Mick Foley has no intention of doing any hardcore with Abyss.
Not even get hardcore, but train to say, oh, you remind me of me when I was younger. I want to help you. I want to get you. You could be a hardcore legend. I want to make Chris Parks Abyss what Mankind was for Mick Foley. That I want to see something like emotion. Mick Foley can bring emotion. Abyss can bring emotion. That'll be one of the greatest storylines they can have in TNA, and it can really propel Abyss back to what Abyss was when he first came around, the indestructible monster that just bleeds and keeps coming.
Well, thank you, Elliot. Great points. Again, later on in this program, we're going to talk a lot more about TNA and what they need to do to get back to success and get back to a growth strategy as far as our opinions go. Let's go now to one last caller before we go to Greg Gagne coming up here next on the Pro Wrestling Report. We've got Jamie, also from New York. Jamie, you are live on the Pro Wrestling Report here on 540 ESPN.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Jamie. What do you have for us this week?
Well, it's hard to estimate what's going to happen at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. We talked about that last week as well. I mean, the clear front runner for a match on the Raw side of things is Randy Orton versus John Cena, but really nobody knows what's going to happen on the SmackDown side of things. You care to speculate, at least from what your standpoint is, Jamie, on what we're going to see on the SmackDown end of things for WrestleMania, in the main event?
Yes, because going in the Elimination Chamber, you can obviously tell that Cena's going to pull this off.
Yeah.
I mean,
he has to.
If they have Kofi Kingston win, they haven't built his character enough for him to go to WrestleMania against a guy like Orton.
Yeah, but again, I think Raw's pretty much settled. What do you think about SmackDown, Jamie?
Well, SmackDown, they have a lot of main events for SmackDown. They have a Jeff Hardy versus The Undertaker. But what I'm thinking is going to lead up to Jeff Hardy versus Matt Hardy at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that's a given.
Again, and we all hope that it's going to be a better match than the last time they wrestled.
It'll be a
it was
TLC
awful.
match at WrestleMania.
Yeah. I have to see Edge versus Triple H at WrestleMania. I think
that's what you want to see, huh?
Yeah, I think that would be a big match on the card as well.
All right. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for that insight. WrestleMania, we talked about a long time. We really don't know what's going to happen on SmackDown. I think we'll speculate a lot more on this week's edition of PWR TV. But when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, it's Greg Gagne exclusively right here on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN and ESPNMilwaukee.com.
I have voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. From Voices, WWE The Music Volume 9, Rev Theory, and Randy Orton's theme song.
I thought you called that the Randy Orton single with many, many, many bonus tracks.
That is what it is, the Randy Orton single. It's the Rev Theory Voices single with bonus tracks, some previously released bonus tracks. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Damian Nelson, the man they call Meathead, the Kaz, and Dave Hero here on Monday night, February 9, 2009. You can join us on the PWR phone lines at 276 ESPN 276-3776, all over southeastern Wisconsin, or nationally at 1-800-990-ESPN, 1-800-990-3776. As we said earlier, we've got a very special guest on here with the Pro Wrestling Report with us right now, the legendary Greg Gagne. Greg, welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report.
Thank you very much. You know, they gave me all the names. What do we got? Mad Dog, Butcher.
Let me tell you something.
Hey, I want to be Mad Dog.
We don't want to have any gimmick infringements, so
I gotcha.
We're doing great. Thank you so much for calling us and staying up late with us. Lots of questions that we have for you. You got a lot of big stuff going on in your life as well, specifically a new wrestling academy you have recently launched. So you want to tell us a little bit about that, sir?
Well, we're having some great success with it. It's called GagneWrestlingAcademy.com, and it's kind of a twofold website. First, it's we've got my old tag team partner, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, and Buck Rock and Roll Zumoff, and Buck's daughter, Heather Zumoff, who helps she trains girls. And we got wrestling camps going for beginners, intermediates, and advanced students. So we're getting that underway, and we got 3 pretty good trainers that have great knowledge of the sport of wrestling, and we're passing on the fundamentals and the techniques that my father Vern passed down to probably 140 wrestlers in professional wrestling. And we're going to get back to a little old school and blend it with the new school and get kids ready so that they can go out and wrestle anywhere in the world.
Greg, let's talk a little old school. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell was in town here in Milwaukee yesterday, and just the overall way of wrestling back then compared to what it is today. Is there any comparison that you can kind of talk about?
Well, there's some. I mean, you still have very good athletes in the sport. There's a lot of great athletes with the WWE right now. But, you know, once television got involved, and I worked for the Turner Network back in 1995 and 93, 94, 95. Mm-hmm. And it was strange. It was different. It was changing. You know, it started changing in the 80s, and then in the 90s it got a little out of hand. But it was Bill Shaw, who was the president of TBS at that time, or the president of WCW, underneath Turner, came down one night in the boardroom where Mike Graham and myself were laying out the television and the pay-per-views, and we had to do a number of them. There was like 9 different TV shows, and then the pay-per-views, and then the specials they had on TBS. And Bill Shaw came down there, and he said, you know, I got a little problem. You know, you guys aren't getting the ratings that we thought we'd be getting. And he says, you know, we're on the 14th floor of the CNN towers, and he looks down in the lobby, and he says, you know, I can take anybody from down there, and they can come up and run professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I said, Bill, is that so? I said, you know, we could take that same person. They can come up here and run TBS. He said, well, they don't know TV. And I said, they don't know wrestling. He said, well, anybody can run wrestling.
Huh. This is the guy running the company.
This is the guy running the company. He says, J.D. Power did a survey, and they said anybody in wrestling shouldn't be running wrestling. Well, that's like saying anybody in TV shouldn't be running TV.
Right.
I mean, how hard is it to program TBS? Let's see, you get a month of Andy Griffith coming up, followed by a month of Double Odd 7 and a month of John Wayne.
Interrupted by one episode of WCW Clash of the Champions.
Exactly. So he said, okay, here's what you guys got 6 weeks to get the ratings up, which was going to be Memorial Weekend. You know, who in the hell's watching TV then?
Right.
Especially out on the West Coast. You know, at that time they were on at, 5 o'clock in Atlanta, so, 2 in the afternoon in L.A.?
Right.
So all we did, we took two veteran wrestlers, Larry Zbyszko and Lord Steven Regal.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And all we did is let them do interviews for 6 weeks. Never had a match. Then they had the match, and it was an old school wrestling match. It was 27 minutes. It was physical. It was wrestling, and it was rough. And Monday morning we come in, and geez, they all are, God, that was fantastic. The highest rated program they ever had.
Huh.
And they looked at us and they said, but we want you to take these 2 young guys over here, and we want you to make one of them a fireman and one a bartender, and we want 5 minutes of action. And I said, Jesus Christ, that's what you've been doing. You've been doing that. We showed you how to get ratings. They want personalities, and they want the personalities of the wrestler that they've developed, not some character that you're developing here, and they want a contest. And that's what we gave you. That's why you got the ratings. That's how wrestling works. But that isn't what they wanted.
Good point.
Yeah.
Interesting perspective.
It made it very difficult. And today, when I did work for the WWE for a while, in fact, what I did is train wrestlers for them, but I was also involved in some of the television.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they've got writers writing the interviews for the guys. Well, God, when Crusher used to come out and he did an interview, he was speaking from the heart, and that was really him and really his persona.
Yep.
That was him.
Sometimes when I'm out with my lady of the night,
I've been hit with more bar stools, barmaids, bar bottles. You know, and then you had Mad Dog Vachon, and Mad Dog, that was his true character, the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
And Vern Gagne, you know, he was always a clean-cut All-American guy, and that's the way he went through college, and that's the way his persona was in the ring. Today, they want to make somebody a character. Right. And here's a great example of when I was down in with the WWE. They had a kid, Paul Burchill was his name.
Uh-huh.
They wanted a pirate. So they made the kid a pirate. And I said to him, I said, Jesus Christ, this kid's not, he's a good athlete. Why would you do that? We need a pirate. So they made him a pirate. After 3 TV shows, they said, geez, he's the shits. You know, we can't use him. And they fired the poor kid and sent him back to the training camp.
Right. Like it's his fault.
Like it's his fault. I said, Jesus, guys, you've got to let them develop their own personality. Okay. And that's what Vern did so well. When he trained wrestlers, he let them develop their own personality. Sometimes it took 3 years. Sometimes it took 5. Case of Mad Dog Vachon, he never found himself. He was 10 years in wrestling before he found out who he really was. He was the Mad Dog. And once he became the real him, he made nothing but money.
Yep.
So that's, to me, the biggest difference.
Yeah.
They're not letting these people develop their own characters. I mean, Triple H, he has, Orton has, Shawn Michaels has, but some of the newer kids coming up, they don't let them, they want them to be somebody they're not.
Right. Well, so that, and we've talked about this many a time, so that they can own him and own him from and keep him from going anywhere else or making any money off of the persona that they create.
Right.
You look at a lot of the people they bring over from other organizations as well. Even earlier on when they were raiding the AWA, they had to put their own image and their own character on them so that they would then own that. It's a smart business move by WWE, but it just doesn't make any sense as far as the performers and the talent and the wrestlers go.
No.
I don't say that dirty word wrestler since, they don't even say it anymore.
No. Well, you have to give McMahon credit. He was a smart businessman. He knew where he wanted to go. He knew where he wanted to take it. And when you look at it and you're around it, it is the NFL of professional wrestling without a doubt. The production is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But, again, what do you have to compete with out there? He put everybody out of business.
Yeah, and what many people don't know.
What the kids growing up now see is only what they present.
Right.
And that's the other part of our website, what we're doing. We're making available collectible items that go back into the 40s. And we're telling the history of professional wrestling, how it first originated on national TV in 1950 from the DuPont Network in Chicago.
Gorgeous George.
From the Marigold Arena as well in Chicago.
Exactly. And some of the first, in fact, my father was the first one who was brought in from Oklahoma to be on the network TV because he was a young, good-looking guy, and he had the Big Ten championship 2 years, NCAA champion. He was on the Olympic team. You know, he had the credentials. So he gets into Chicago, and Fred Kohler was the promoter at the time. And he said, Vern, here's what I want you to do tonight. We want you to dress up as a Martian, whatever that was, and we want you to come out of the ceiling and make your big entrance. And Vern said, Fred, I've got a pair of wrestling boots on. I've got my wrestling tights. You can line everybody up here in the locker room. I'll take every one of them on tonight, and if I don't beat them all, I'll come out of the ceiling as a Martian. But if I can't make it in wrestling with my boots and my tights and who I am, then this is the wrong thing for me. And he became the first Hulk Hogan of professional wrestling because he was on that network TV.
Yeah.
You know, he was on Jack Parr and on Art Linkletter and Shoot the Howdy Doody Show and, you know, all those early TV shows in the 50s, and he was the first one to break through from wrestling into the limelight. And he was the first athlete at that time, well, except for maybe Babe Ruth, he made it $100,000 in 1950. You know, that's
a lot of money back then.
Money. So what we've done with the help of George Shire, who has a wonderful collection of old programs, pictures, everything, we've come up with the idea, and we've got some beautiful prints. The first one is with Vern with his 12 top opponents, where they met, the outcome of the match, and a story about him in the 50s. And we've got more on the way. We're going through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, just like that. So you're going to end up getting the Crusher and Mad Dog Vachon and some great pictures, great prints. And we've also got a lot of merchandise that's coming out for the kids with throwback shirts that are going to be phenomenal. So that's what we're working on.
And that's all at GagneWrestlingAcademy.com.
That's the place to go. And you know, we're still working on some of the merchandise, and I think by March 1st we've got the site up right now because we want to get those wrestling camps going. The merchandise, we've got that great print of Vern. There's 45 of them left that are signed. And then after that, we've got all kinds of them for the public out there. There's 2 different prices there for them.
Now, here's my question, Greg.
Yep.
And we were looking up and doing some research on the show tonight, and we found, you know, the year in which you were born. And we've long talked about how great Nick Bockwinkel looks. Granted, he lives out in Vegas now, but obviously from up in the Minnesota area. How do y'all look so good throughout the course of your years and just
Is it the water in Robbinsdale?
Is it the Skywalks downtown, the Mall of America? What's going on up there?
Minnesota, man. It's living in Minnesota. Just good genes, good French genes that we've got. You know, I don't know. I mean, the road was, you know, it was fun. It was exciting. It was tough. It was hard on the body. I mean, I got all the aches and pains now, and I know Nick does. And you know, some of these guys, their memory's getting a little rough. And Mad Dog's in a wheelchair now. They took a physical beating.
Oh.
But I think because we stayed in shape and we worked, you know, we went all year round. We weren't like football players at that time who went, you know, they had their season.
And many times here at the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee.
Oh, loved the place. Absolutely loved it. Some great memories there.
And you know what a lot of people, speaking of memories, a lot of people don't realize is how instrumental AWA was as far as where wrestling is today. The first real nationally broadcast wrestling on ESPN, which is still aired on ESPN Classics. It's just fun to watch. Real wrestling from the AWA on that channel each night. Obviously, the stars, the list goes miles long, the stars that people only became nationally familiar with, unfortunately, later on in WWE or F, whatever you want to call it, that were built and made and branded in AWA. The Hulk Hogans of the world, the Sergeant Slaughters, the Mean Gene Okerlund, just so many people.
Iron Sheik.
Well, everybody came out of there. Vern trained 144 wrestlers. Larry the Axe Henning was his first one. Baron von Raschke, Blackjack Lanza, Blackjack Mulligan, the Anderson brothers. A lot of people don't know that. Gene, Ole, and Lars.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on. Sergeant Slaughter, Ricky Steamboat, you know, Jim Brunzell, myself, Ken Patera, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, Buck Rock and Roll Zumhoff. And, you know, there were so many in between there that made their mark, not only in the AWA, but in other places around. So there was really basically three places that really trained wrestlers. There was Vern, there was Eddie Graham in Florida, and the Funks in Texas. And they trained those people. McMahon never trained anybody. Shit. All he did is everybody else got the people ready, and then they would go up to New York. Billy Superstar Graham came here out of California. Never a star. Made him a star in the AWA, and from there he went to McMahon.
Yeah.
And Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
I ran into Hulk, Shea Stadium, and he wrestled Andre that night.
Mm-hmm.
I came back to the room after the match, got out with some friends. He's sitting in the hall, and the guy's in tears. And I said, "Big man, what's wrong?" He said, "I can't make it in professional wrestling." And I said, "Well, you've got a lot of talent. You just need to be groomed and find out who you really are. You're not the character you portrayed tonight." Mm-hmm. I said, "Why don't you call my dad, come into the AWA, and we'll work with you." Vern brought him in. In fact, he came into Chicago when we were on the Phil Donahue show, jumped in on an interview on the end, and it was just really raw. So we brought him up to Minneapolis. First time I saw him in Milwaukee, he had Johnny Valiant with his manager, and I said, "You know what? Nobody's going to hate this guy. They're going to love him." So what we did, we put him in 6-man tag team matches with Jim and myself, and he wrestled guys like Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens and Bobby Heenan and Jerry Blackwell. And the only time we let him in the ring is when we had control of the match. Make him look good and get him out. And he finally started catching on, and then Vern helped him with his interviews. And pretty soon, there was Hulk Hogan. He was the star, and he was unbelievable. And the only thing that wasn't good was his word.
Greg, now with the start of your academy, would you say it's safe to say that not only will they learn theory, they learn old school, but also you're going to try to establish a territory for the Gagne Wrestling Academy? These guys get a chance to go out there and work in front of a live crowd, as opposed to a warehouse either in Louisville or in Tampa, where it's all in front of instructors.
Well, exactly. I mean, once we get the kids ready, I mean, you know, they're going to sign up, and the beginners, you know, they're not going to all make it, and we'll be up front with them. I'm not going to take money from them to go into the second camp, but if they're not going to make it, we'll tell them. If they want to continue, they can, but, you know, not everybody makes it professional wrestling that wants to.
Right.
And it's going to be the camp run like Vern did. And we're going to give them the basic fundamentals. We're going to teach them all the basic techniques. When they get to the advanced class, they're going to work on matches, they're going to work on interviews, and we'll help them develop who they really are. Then what we've got going is Buck and his daughter, Buck Zumhoff, and Heather, they run about 170 cards a year. So we can put them on the road so they can wrestle in front of people. Nobody else can give them that. And who knows, we may be running a lot of other towns. I've got some meetings this week with people that are already excited about, you know, the name Gagne is pretty big around here.
Oh, yeah.
And they want wrestling cards. So we're going to provide them with them once we get talent ready.
Okay. Greg,
so, you know, we think we have a great concept. The camps and the collectibles, I mean, for anybody that was ever a fan. And what we did, I've got Mad Dog signed to a contract, Nick Bockwinkel, the Crushers family, Vern, Brunzell, myself, and Buck. We want to give back to those guys who really got wrestling to where it is today. And they didn't get a chance to get all that merchandising money that the kids are getting today. So the fans that were fans of the AWA can help get great collectibles. And, again, we're going to provide some of those proceeds to those guys that really deserve it.
And all that information can be found at GagneWrestling.com. Again, that's
Academy.
I'm sorry, GagneWrestlingAcademy.com. Again, that's GagneWrestlingAcademy.com. Greg Gagne, it's such an honor and a pleasure to have had you on the show this evening. We hope to be able to invite you on again soon to have more of this great wrestling insight from a true person who has been instrumental in the professional wrestling that we have seen and continue to see each and every week. Greg, thank you so much for coming
guys,
on.
I really appreciate it. And remember, that's Crusher country down there, and none of us will ever forget it.
We're going to roll out the barrels right after this show.
Roll them out, and thanks for having me on and any time, and I really thank you much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, take care.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, and we'll be back after this short timeout, and we are also on ESPNMilwaukee.com. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Damian Nelson, the man they call Meathead, the Cause, and Dave Hero here as we...
This is Al's new theme song.
Kick off the big hour 2. We'd like to welcome all of you listening to us live on 540 ESPN and at PWRshow.com and ESPNMilwaukee.com. Special thanks go out to some of our members at the Pro Wrestling Report website. Belfast Bruiser, Hitman 28, the Hitman, Fishhead 2100, and Funky Southern Angel, just some of the members that are on with us live right now. And speaking of on with us live right now, you can join us, folks, on the PWR phone lines at 276-ESPN, 276-3776, all over southeastern Wisconsin. And then 1-800-990-ESPN, 1-800-990-3776. We'll take your calls in just a few moments after we get to our very special guest who is joining us live here as well tonight. Please welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, Al Snow. Al, welcome to the radio show.
Hello, and howdy do.
Thank you so much for staying up with us and talking a little bit of wrestling with us here. Firstly, Al, let's talk about let's tell the fans what you've been up to over the course of the last few months. We last saw you at Blizzard Brawl here in Milwaukee, and that was the precursor to your show, your appearance on TNA Wrestling just that weekend. Really one of the few people that can say they've worked for WWE, TNA, and ECW all over the course of a number of years. But
and
Al,
WCW.
Exactly. What are you up to nowadays?
Well, I've been training midgets to cage fight to the death.
Whoa. Hey.
That's a good business to be in.
Even though my name is Meathead, I am a midget too, man. If you're hot, just say you're hot, man.
Well, I thought only the ladies of the world knew you were a midget, Meathead.
Yeah. Not at all. I'm not hot at all. In fact, I think it's big business. Historically, small people have always equaled big entertainment. I mean, even the carnivals and circuses knew that.
That's a true statement. Very true statement. Well, Al,
and it's not like I have to worry about a big public outcry or anything. I mean, it's not like midgets can actually vote. I mean, they can't reach the lever. So.
They can't reach the 13th floor either of a hotel.
Exactly.
That's a multi-dimensional joke there. Because there is no 13th floor in any hotel.
It makes me think of that movie with John Cusack. What was the one where they had this short little floor for his midget wife? And then it was being John Malkovich. That's what it was. Great movie.
Yeah, thanks for that 45 seconds you just ruined. Al Snow, back to you. Obviously, a lot going on. You're wrestling all over the place, and a lot of fans remember, obviously, the head gimmick and, the great interactions that you've had with Mick Foley and continue to have with Mick Foley. We saw one of the most amazing exchanges between the two of you here at a GLCW show one year. But tell us a little bit about your brief stint in TNA and your most recent activity in World Wrestling Entertainment as well.
As far as TNA was concerned, they had contacted me about coming down and doing something on the pay-per-view, and then asked me to remain for the subsequent 2 days for the TV, and I just kind of hung out, and we had a brief conversation, and that was about it. They had mentioned at that time that they would be giving me a call after the first of the year, and I'm sure if there's something that comes up that I will fit as far as a puzzle piece in their plans, I'm sure that they'll probably contact me, and might have an opportunity there. Who knows?
Hey, Al, Meathead here. As far as the travel goes, a company like TNA, would something like TNA kind of interest guys more often because they do so many tapings in one spot where all you got to do is you got to fly in for a week or two, hang out, and then you got the rest of the month to yourself? Is that really why you end up seeing a lot of guys just popping up in TNA out of nowhere because of the nice travel schedule?
Al, it sounds like you're breaking up just a little there.
Oh,
sorry.
He's talking to him.
While you find an answer, actually, we were lucky enough to do a video interview with you probably almost 8 or 9 years ago now at a Body Slams on Ice, I think it was. And one of the questions I asked was, do you ever get lost with all the travel? Do you ever not know where you are? And your answer was all the time.
And I still do. I'm constantly lost. So, right now I'm in my house, but I don't even know what room in the house I'm in.
Al Snow, your perspective. Recently, obviously, the big news story of the weekend was this fan attack, this fan incident with Chris Jericho outside of a WWE event. I know you saw the video of that today. Generally, we had an in-depth discussion recently about when fans go too far. Obviously, being in the business as long as you have been in the business, specifically those ECW days where fans were getting very, very rowdy. Matter of fact, I remember an event here in Chicago.
We're in Milwaukee.
Well, close by here in Chicago, where I think Devon was in the ring and Bubba Ray, and they had encouraged the fans to start throwing chairs into the ring. And I was in the second row in chair range, and it was just it was amazing some of the things that happened. But your perspective on basically the fan who provoked Chris Jericho, who we felt was left with no choice but to defend himself, but being in so many similar incidents, at least knowing the fan dimension, if you will, what are your thoughts on what you've seen of that incident?
Well, I feel sorry for Chris. He's in a bad situation, I think. With this, it's probably a can't win type of deal for him, unfortunately, legally, and to some degree or another. Even though he was provoked and probably, something happened to where he was completely within his rights, but legally, he's probably done. We're in such a litigious society, and everybody's a victim. Nobody has any personal responsibility, and truly what's unfortunate is that, nobody's held accountable for their own actions. It's always somebody else's fault. So the fans these days realize and really pretty much know that they can pretty much get away with murder, and that the wrestlers really can't do anything as far as retribution physically at that moment to stop whatever's happening. And because if they do, then it's the wrestler's fault, and the wrestler can be sued. And that's a sad situation. I mean, those fans should never have been able to should never have done it in the first place. And in the past, they wouldn't have, because in the past, if they had, it would have been because they were so worked up they were going to probably try and turn the car over, and you wouldn't have taken the chance to stop. You'd have just drove right on through. But nowadays they just surround the car, and because they know that you're not going to pull forward, you're not going to take a chance on hitting any of them or hurting them, and they know that, and they feel secure in standing around the vehicle and blocking your way. And what's really sad is that the building security should have been out there.
Al, we do have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish this conversation with Al Snow about the Chris Jericho incident.
WAUK Jackson, Monday nights at 6. It's the Marquette Basketball Hour with Buzz Williams on 540 ESPN. For over 10 years, the world's #1 source for professional wrestling news and information. And once again, here's your hosts, Damian Nelson, Frank Cosentino, and the man they call Meathead. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report here live, Monday night, February 9th on 540 ESPN. We're also joined by David Hero and, obviously, most importantly, Al Snow. Al, sorry about that abrupt break just before that timeout, but when SportsCenter calls, we have to answer. Just before that, we were talking about the Chris Jericho incident, which has been blown out of proportion in some areas and some media channels, which the big headline, of course, is wrestler attacks fan, where there was so much more to it than that. And you were giving good insight as to what you've seen over the course of your years in the business and how this is an unfortunate situation for Chris Jericho.
The headline that Chris, a wrestler attack fans is absurd. You can clearly see from the videotape of what exactly happened, and what, like I said, what made it worse is that it should never have happened in the first place. Because really, who should be responsible and supposed to be there to prevent that would be the building security, who were apparently quite lax in preventing it from ever happening. You know, it's a bad situation. But I was listening to your Sports Center report there, and I was listening to the great report about the performance-enhancing drugs and the ridiculous application to baseball, and how horrendous it sounds, that, baseball players took it. And, I'm not a medical doctor, don't have a degree, and but from what I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that performance-enhancing drugs of any sort, you name the drug that is performance-enhancing as far as sports, has yet to be found that actually increases or helps you as far as your eye-hand coordination or ability to catch a ball or hit it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a valid point.
What the hell does it have to do with baseball?
It's a story. I mean, remember when Congress even got involved with that? Because, there was nothing else going on for them to do.
Oh, yeah. So we have to do something. We've got to jump on the train to justify the fact that we're actually doing a job of some sorts.
Yeah.
So,
Al, tell us a little bit about you played an integral role in a lot of the stars we see right now in WWE. When you had your role down with Ohio Valley Wrestling, at the time it was the Farm League for WWE, and we saw that there was a very abrupt relationship. The relationship was quickly, I'm sorry, losing my words there, was quickly severed by WWE for some reason.
This is why you make the big money on radio. So go ahead.
Right. It's the cold that I'm lucky to have come down with.
I think getting hot.
But anyways, I mean, obviously playing such an integral role in a lot of the stars we see today, and then a little insight as to what happened with the relationship between OVW and WWE at the end.
Well, I can only give you a certain amount as far as true insight, because a lot of it would be a speculation on my part. I was not privy, to the upper echelon and their decisions, and and it wasn't an abrupt decision, that's for certain. That I can confirm because during the discussion that day, it was mentioned that if at Atlanta had remained open and stayed around, that they'd have done it prior to to a year ago. They'd have done it even sooner. I know that WWE had quite for some time wanted to truly own or for it to be theirs, I guess.
Yeah.
And, I guess that was why they wanted to do it in Tampa. They had intentions of doing it in Atlanta, I get, from what I understand, and then when Atlanta was closed down, then they decided to move those plans to Florida and do it there.
Al, with the success of Tough Enough over the years, and now with Celebrity Championship Wrestling, there's rumors of course, a Tough Enough celebrity. We've talked about it before. What do you think that's going to do to the business that's already been damaged by these reality shows?
Well, I don't think that the business has been damaged necessarily by reality shows. The only thing that I disliked about Celebrity Championship Wrestling is just that it was celebrities, and that it kind of gave the impression of are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, sorry, I hit the speaker button. Sorry.
It's okay.
Hold on.
Those damn speaker buttons.
I swear, I got this touch tone phone, and the touch screen phone, and I end up getting the speaker phone sometimes. But I think it belittles the wrestling business. It shows that just anybody can do it. You don't have to sacrifice and really have a passion to do it. You can just be a middle-aged celebrity and decide that that's something you want to pursue just to get some television time. And I do disagree with that, but I mean, come on, let's face it. I mean, is that the worst that's going to happen? that's been done to the business, and the business continues to survive some way somehow. So I don't think that it's really going to be all that bad, I guess. So.
Not as bad as Shane McMahon coming out of retirement again to do a bunch of crazy high spots.
Hey, for a lot of things, don't make sense. And the wonderful thing about wrestling is it's an art. It truly is. Professional wrestling is an art. So it's subjective, which means it's subjective to people's opinions, and everybody's got one. And it's not objective. It's not a science. So therefore, who knows? I mean, it must work. They're still in business and making tons of money, and the people have cried the doom of professional wrestling now. I remember Dave Meltzer was crying that back in the early 80s, and about every 2 or 3 years continued to preach that if we continue down this course of action, wrestling will just curl up and die within the next X number of years, and it's still there. So as much as we spin on it and kick on it and take a dump on it, it continues to just keep rolling right along, and especially WWE. They must know what they're doing, I guess, because they're making money.
Al, one of the things we talked about before the show was, with Shane McMahon coming in now and to wrestle Randy Orton, what kind of mood does it set in the locker room when they see Shane McMahon go out there, fall off the top of a Titantron, or do the Rob Van Dam Van Terminator move? All these crazy spots and moves that the other guys wouldn't do on a regular basis,
or aren't allowed to do.
So what does it, as far as the mood is concerned in the locker room?
If Shane McMahon goes out there and does, like all those crazy spots again, it's kind of hard for certain guys to follow that. And then it shows that a guy that comes out, who wrestles once a year or once every 2 or 3 years, comes out, does all the amazing moves, and now, I don't know. For me, it just feels like it, belittles what the other guys do day in and day out.
I think as far as the fans are concerned, and I'm not talking about the hardcore fans, I'm talking about the general fans, the casual fans, the Mr. and Mrs. Walmarts, I think that it sends the wrong message because, wrestling's an educational business. You educate the fans to like or dislike whatever you want them to like or dislike, and you educate the fans to believe or disbelieve whatever you want them to believe or disbelieve. And, really at the heart of professional wrestling, the fans, and this was just my opinion, but I feel they still, to some degree or another, are paying to believe, wanting to believe, and they know it's, let's face it, I mean, they've known since, the 30s that wrestling is predetermined, that it's fake, because the only thing that's fake is the outcome. And they've known that, but they continue to show up and spend their money because they were getting what it was they were paying to believe in, which was they were paying to believe that it was a competition. And, that the wrestlers were just like a boxer or an MMA fighter. They were prize fighters, that they were out there fighting for money. And painting the picture that here's the boss's son who technically, according to his character, is, not talking about reality, but according to his character, is just the boss's son. He's not really a active professional wrestler. And now he shows up and does bigger, more spectacular moves than some of the guys that are active professional wrestlers. It sends the message that now the entire roster is now a step less than the guy who's not going to be there every single week.
And that's why I've said over and over on this program that actually having Shane McMahon come out in whatever program that Shane McMahon works with, whoever he's working with, actually doesn't elevate the other guy that he's working with. It kind of puts the rest of the locker room down because of all these spots that Shane does that the other guys aren't doing.
Well, it's not just the spots. It's that idea or concept that here's a guy who's supposed to be a businessman and the son of the owner, mm-hmm. who's now out there and is able to physically match or outdo one of your top guys. Now, if it's your top guy, then if Shane, a guy who does this on a part-time basis and isn't really truly a professional wrestler, in the picture that you're painting, then what does that now make all the guys that are now less than the top guy?
Yeah.
It's just that's like if Don King had a son, which I think he does. I don't know. He might be a proven breeder. But Don has a son, and his son occasionally decides to step in the ring and be a boxer. And let's face it, guys, anybody that believes that for 1 second that boxing's not as fake as professional wrestling is fooling themselves.
I agree.
It is
for a long time.
It's a business, and it simply hasn't been exposed. But believe me, it is just as much a work in the factor that they've predetermined who's going to win and who's going to lose, who they're going to push, who they're not, who they're going to market. The same as what wrestling is, and if Don King's son decided to show up and box against, one of the top heavyweights, and of course, clearly outdo him, even if he lost the match, but he's still clearly outdone him, doing the old Sugar Ray, doing the Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope, things like that really he had no business doing. What would that make the rest of your rankings from, 2 through 10 of the top 10 of heavyweight boxers in the world?
Yeah. Al, we want to switch directions here. The wrestler is getting a lot of buzz and it's getting a lot of attention. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What did you think about it?
I thought it was a great movie. It was a terrific character study.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. And what I think was especially impressive was Mickey Rourke's performance. You hear all this is about awards and about his performance, but his performance not only in the ring, obviously, that wasn't all done in one take, but just the fact that he completely immersed himself into the character and really presented himself as someone who could be believed as a former professional wrestler. Granted, not everybody, of course, goes on the track that he did, but it really told a great story, and I truly like what they did with the ending as well, where it was sort of you had to make your own conclusion.
Well, I think Marissa Tomei did an amazing job too. I don't think that she's getting, and not just because she looked amazing naked. I mean,
obviously.
But because of the fact that she was really incredibly believable, and the mirroring of both her character and his, and her realization of that she was coming to an end, and of her fantasy career, which was the strip club, and he was coming into it at a different point and the end of his fantasy career of being a professional wrestler. I mean, it was and his desperate need for someone in his life, and her fear of having someone in her life. I thought she was just as good as Mickey Rourke. I really thought that they both were very capable and terrific actors in this movie.
Yep. Your thoughts on whether or not, and to speculate as to whether or not it's going to happen, but if it were to happen, the Chris Jericho, Mickey Rourke altercation match, boxing match, wrestling match, whatever that may be for WrestleMania. Smart move or not a smart move?
Whatever sells tickets, who cares? You know. My only problem was that I was listening to Howard Stern, and when they made the announcement, and occasionally I do listen to his program, and I was so disappointed in when it was made, brought out that Mickey Rourke was going to be possibly involved in WrestleMania, and at that time, I think he was actually going to wrestle Chris Jericho. I don't think he's in that. I don't think he's actually wrestling Chris Jericho anymore. I don't know what angle they're doing, but man, the absolute disdain and the how beneath him to be involved in wrestling, and how everybody still to this day, in spite of as far as things have came, still look at like wrestling like as if it's the redheaded stepchild of
and
entertainment.
They don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about it except
they don't know anything about it, and they don't care to know anything about it, and they still think it's like, it's some carnival joke or sideshow. When it's no different than anything that's done in Hollywood. It's just amazing, amazing to me, and very disappointing too.
Spending so much time with WWE Tough Enough and obviously Ohio Valley Wrestling, who can you say you're most proud of that you worked with in one of those two areas?
Really, to be honest with you, all the guys. I mean, every single one of the guys that have went on and have gotten. I don't know how you would quantify success. Because
who do you see and who do you see on television, and who do you see perform and say that guy had it and that guy is doing great that came up under your tutelage?
A lot of the guys. I'd hate to mention when people ask me that. I hate to mention a name or names because inevitably, thanks to the fact that I have the memory of a crack baby.
And how does one judge the memory of a crack baby?
There are scientific studies going on right now.
Right. That I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to mention a name or two, and somebody's going to get their feelings hurt and go, well, gee, Al thinks this guy's better or whatever, and that's not the case. It's just the fuse blew years ago, and the filament in the brain, the bulb in my brain is just it's barely flickering anymore. That's why I'm lost in my own house.
Hey Al, wouldn't you say that Santino has one of the better stories though?
I think Santino, I always thought that Santino had tremendous amount of charisma and talent and ability, and he's a good example of what the wrestling business really is, and that is that every time you go to that ring, you have an opportunity. Everybody likes to tell themselves it's all because, the powers that be, the writers, WWE, Vince, they make you. It's you who make yourself. Mm-hmm. And every time you go to that ring, you have that chance. And a good example of that is, Santino Marella was a Russian in OVW as a shoot fighter and got so over that, in the middle of Kentucky, he became the babyface. A tremendous babyface. And then was brought up at a moment's notice before he was really ready, honestly, as far as experience was concerned, and given an opportunity as far as the Italy thing, and it bombed. It was horrible. Yeah. But yet he was able to turn it around because of his own talent and his own ability and his own willingness to just go out there and do something to where now he is where he's at. And that's not because those guys did it. It's because Santino Marella took it upon himself when he went to the ring to do it himself.
And we've said for a lot of time on this program that there are two real big standout stars in WWE that may not have seen their full potential yet but are on their way there, first of which being Santino Marella, the second of which being John Morrison, who you also spent a lot of time working with.
Well, John Morrison's a kid that, he tried to get into Tough Enough 2, and MTV did not want him because of the fact that they believed that he was there only to be on TV. And then as a result, when he tried out for Tough Enough 3, they were going to refuse him again. And I had to argue and fight to get John on Tough Enough, and convince them that I did believe that he was there for the right reasons, and that I always believed that he had charisma and had the ability to draw money.
Hey,
and I still do.
Al, here in the Chattosphere that we got going on, we got a guy by the name of Curryhead, and he wants me to ask you, what is the 7 deadly steps of a wrestling match?
Well, the 7 deadly steps are probably one of the worst things that has ever happened to professional wrestling.
Okay.
It is a formula that is being taught to absolutely everybody, whether they be in WWE or TNA or the independents. And like I told you guys, wrestling's an art form. It's not a science. You don't do it just. It's not. You remember paint by numbers pictures?
Oh, of course, I do them right now, actually.
Yeah. Well, there's black background with a white, form of, any different number of things. A country scene, a horse, a cow, and, the corresponding numbers for different spots on the picture. Red was 1, 2 was yellow, 3 was green. Anybody could do it. But you never saw, as pretty as one of those pictures might be, you never saw one of those pictures hanging in a museum. And the reason why is because it wasn't done by an artist. And, when you looked at a picture in a museum, the reason they were there was it was done with your heart, with passion. And when you look at it, it evokes an emotion. It evokes a feeling, an idea. Well, with wrestling, it's pretty much the same way. Wrestling matches are done with passion from your heart. You got to feel what you're doing when you're thinking out there. And you do it with the 7 deadly steps, which are taught to all of the guys now. Then the problem is, 1, if you have 10 matches on the card, they are 10 of the exact same match over and over again. All you got to do is change the guy. A couple of the moves might be different. A few of the what they call high spots might be different. But it's the same match. It feels the same. It's so plastic. It's so fake.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sell tickets. People want to feel something.
Right.
The other problem is that it has nothing to do with what a wrestler is really supposed to be out there trying to do. A heel's job is to get a babyface over. A babyface's job is to get over. Now, the term get over means to make the audience want to be you, to emulate you, to live vicariously through you, okay?
That emotional attachment, that caring about the character.
Think of it this way. If you're walking down the street and you see me set a car on fire, okay, you're probably just going to dial 911. If you're walking down the street and you see me setting your car on fire, you're probably going to run across the street and try and kick my rear end.
That's a great analogy.
If you're walking down the street and you see me setting your car on fire with your family and your dog in it, you're probably going to run across the street and try and kill me.
Yeah. Great
Think of a wrestling match. The babyface is your car. Okay?
Yeah.
Babyface is trying to be your car with your family in it. The heel is trying to make the babyface your car with your family in it so that you care about the babyface. Because if you don't care about the babyface, no matter what the heel does, he's never going to get any true heat. And if he never gets any true heat, you're never going to actually sell tickets. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? The problem with the 7 deadly steps is that the guys go out there and they try to do these things called, the step 1 is to shine the babyface. Shine the babyface is where the babyface does 2 or 3 spots where he bumps the heel around.
Mm-hmm.
Step 2 is where now the heel does a bigger, it's called the heat spot. That's where he cuts off the babyface. And it basically is where the heel will do a bigger, stronger, more aggressive kick-ass move than what the 3 high spots were that the babyface did in his shine.
Yeah.
Well, now, who does the audience want to be? We want to be the heel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, what does that make the heel? It makes the heel the babyface. And the babyface somebody that we don't want to be, because the babyface is laying there selling like he's a slug on the very place that he could lose on the mat.
Yeah.
Well, there's one problem. Step 3 is now the heel gets his supposed heat. That's where he does his 2 or 3 high spots, which are always much more cooler, kick-ass, and much more aggressive than what the babyface did in his shine, which now simply reinforces the fact that we much more want to be the heel than we do want to be the babyface. And the babyface just continues to sell like a slug laying on the mat because he thinks that's his way of showing that he's hurt. Step 4 is now, of course, the hope spot. But at this point in time, for the audience, 9 times out of 10, we just hope that you finish the match and go home. Unfortunately, you're not going to. So the hope spot is that, we're going to hope that you're going to rally some kind of offense. The babyface is going to rally some kind of offense and make a comeback. But a comeback from what? And we're hoping for what? Because we don't want to be the babyface anyway, so there's no hope for him anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to do it, which results in the heel again doing something even bigger and stronger and more aggressive and cutting the babyface off one more time, which thus reinforces the fact we want to be the heel even more. and the babyface even less. Have we gotten any real heat yet? No, of course not. And what really actually sells tickets? Heat. But, hey, who cares about that? As long as we do our steps and we get our spots in, that's all that matters.
Right.
Step 5. We always have to do some kind of double down, or we're both get one guy misses a move and we're both now selling. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the heel who has had all of the offense for the last 5 or 6 minutes and been doing all this kick-ass stuff is now selling just as bad as the babyface has been doing, and he was the one who had the offense. But now he's just as dead as the babyface was for selling for 10 minutes. Well, now we don't want to be either one of you because you're both a bunch of wussies. We don't want to be either of you. We don't want to be heel. We don't want to be babyface. But we need to continue on because we got to make sure we get all our steps in. We got to get all our spots in. So step 6. Step 6 is now where we do the comeback. The comeback, of course, results in not just where it becomes a fight, the babyface has had enough, and now he's just going to kick the heel's butt. Nah. It's going to be where the heel jumps up off the mat, runs at the babyface with his hands down at his arms down at his waist like he's a retarded penguin, and he's going to get punched in the head. The heel's going to take 1 bump, 2 bumps, 3 bumps, back up into the ropes conveniently so the babyface can now grab the outstretched hand of the heel, shoot him across the ropes, and give him one big move. And now, finally, after 10 minutes in the ring, we're going to finally attempt to do the one thing we were supposed to be trying to do the entire time. We're going to try to win the first pinfall of the match.
Yeah, the first.
And therefore, it means nothing.
Right.
Which really just to step 7, which are, of course, inevitably false finishes, which aren't false because we've never taught the audience that we're really trying to win. And the false finishes lead to the finish, which means nothing.
Wow.
That's the problem with 7 Deadly Steps, and it's done everywhere all the time.
I feel like I just watched the TNA X Division match or like a cruiserweight match, but yeah, I've been seeing that for years. You're right.
Don't put the heat on TNA.
No, there's no heat on.
You can put it on any promotion there is.
Yeah.
Every wrestler does that.
Yeah, Dave said except for GLCW, of course.
But
because aren't you the current heavyweight champion there?
Listen, 27 years ago I was taught this fact, and it's become more true now than ever before. Anybody can put on a pair of tights and a pair of boots and call themselves a professional wrestler. Not just anybody can be a professional worker. It's the same as anybody can be a painter, but not everybody can be an artist. Okay?
Yeah.
And now, these days, there are far, far, far more wrestlers than there are any workers left in the business.
Very good point and profound. I mean, you really just summed up a lot of the problems right now out in the business, and so much going on, and so much. A lot of people say that the business has been forced into doing that due to the short attention span of a lot of viewers out there and the evolving.
Listen, as far as the short attention span of the viewers are concerned, so what?
No.
The wrestlers, the workers, are the ones who work the marks. Okay? You never let the marks work you. The unfortunate situation is that now the marks have worked the wrestlers, and there are more marks in the business than there ever have been before, and more marks are running the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, listen, as much as knowledgeable as you are, and I respect everything that you guys know, you probably know more about professional wrestling than I do. And that is not a joke. The problem is, though, you guys don't have experience.
Right.
It's no different than like Siskel and Ebert, tremendous critics of movies and Hollywood. But have they ever, 1, acted in one, or 2, ever produced one or directed one or anything in regards to actually doing it? No. So therefore, how many of the people in Hollywood do you honestly believe allow Siskel and Ebert or any other movie critic to dictate to them what kind of movie and how they market it?
Not many at all.
They don't.
No,
right,
they try to manipulate it after the fact, but that's about it.
Well, in wrestling, unfortunately, every single wrestler now, and if you don't believe me, have a few of them call in. Ask them, when you show up at a building, what do you want to do? Well, I want to have the best match on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Well, that's the stupidest thing you could do, because you shouldn't want to have the best match on the show, and that's where things have changed, guys. It's not having the best match on the show is the goal of the wrestler. It's having the match that sells the most tickets, and those don't always go hand in hand. Take, for instance, and I always use this as a great example. You all watched WrestleMania 3, am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was the best match on the show?
Steamboat Savage? Yeah, I was going to say Steamboat Savage.
I say questioning because
Steamboat Savage. Exactly. Everybody says that. Do you know how stupid that is? And you know why? Because 93,000 people didn't pay to see Savage and Steamboat.
No, they paid for Hogan Andre.
Right. So who had the best match on the show?
Well, see, the best wrestling match on the show was clearly Steamboat Savage. The best match, the money match on the show was clearly the main.
If wrestling matches sold tickets, you guys, then the amateur wrestling would be selling out all over the United States.
Sure.
And it's not.
Sure.
And here's the problem, knuckleheads. If we're trying to have the best match on the show, everybody's trying to have the best match on the show. Well, guess what? We're not worried about how many tickets we're selling.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not worried about how many tickets we're selling, and you don't sell tickets, how are you ever going to be able to afford to run a show to continue to have that best match?
Yeah.
It's far more important to have the match that sells the most tickets than it is to have the match that's the best one on the show. And here's why. How do you know you had the best match on the show?
By the number of tickets sold. Number of people there.
You
the amount of money.
for Damian
No, wait, what do you mean?
You wait for Dave Meltzer to report about it.
That's exactly right. The only way that you as a professional wrestler know that you had the best match on the show is if a critic now says you had the best match on the show. Am I not right?
Oh, we did it tonight when we were talking about TNA's Against All Odds.
So how did everybody know that Savage and Steamboat had the best match on the show? Well, everybody said that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not how the business was set up. The business was set up to have the match that sells the most tickets. And that right there, my boys, was where the business started to change. The focus became more about having that pat on the back from the critics than it was about having the match that put the most asses in the seats. You could have the greatest wrestling match in the history of wrestling, ever.
Yeah.
Even back in the carnival days.
Mm-hmm.
Better than that. But if you're in a building that seats 5,000 people and only 200 showed up to see it, how great was it? Not to mention, next month you ran the same building. Instead of 200 people, 85 showed up.
Yeah.
But you know what? Everybody said it was the greatest match in the history of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But fewer people showed up to see it. If it was so great, instead of 200 people, why didn't 5,000 people show up to see it?
I mean, you're preaching. I mean, yeah. I mean,
I respect your guys' opinion, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
Have any of you, had any medical training whatsoever?
None. I've played a doctor on TV before, but no medical training.
Okay.
No medical training.
If you were to go and have surgery at the hospital, would any of you right now think to tell the surgeon how to operate on it?
Oh, absolutely not.
No, not at all.
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
You're correct.
But then why is it okay, or does it make sense that a wrestler rely on your opinion to tell him how to do his job and make his living?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has happened.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with people having their opinion
right.
and critiquing a show or a match or a pay-per-view because you paid your money. You're absolutely entitled to do it.
Right.
But if you've never once done, not just done it, but done it to try to make a living, to feed your family, to keep a roof over your head, then where do you expect that these guys should sit there and take to heart what you say? And now change their entire style to appeal to you,
mm-hmm.
so that you will now continue to give them a great review, because that's what's happened. As more and more of the guys try to get that great review, fewer and fewer of the general fans care to watch what it is that they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, it's because of the economy. It's so terrible.
No.
Really? Well, why is Hollywood continuing to make movies that sell millions and millions of dollars?
Yep.
Maybe it's because when you pay to see the movie, you get what you paid to see.
Mm-hmm.
If wrestling were giving the audience what they paid to see, do you think they'd continue to show up?
No, not at all.
Yeah, they would if you give them what they pay to see.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misheard that. Yeah, well, I mean, it's right now. While money is tight, people are making more. They're putting more into that decision as to what they do, where that entertainment money is going. Whether it be wrestling, whether it be a movie, whether it be a concert, whatever.
That's always the case. It doesn't matter if money's tight or not. Money's tight now, but think about it. An average guy, the average guy makes what, $25,000, $30,000 a year.
Average Joe or man of mystery?
Okay, yes. Yes. An average guy makes $25,000, $30,000 a year. Are we right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So after taxes and everything like that, what do you think he takes home every 2 weeks?
Maybe $800.
I think less. I think $600.
Yeah.
Okay, $600. So he takes almost $600 every 2 weeks. So by a month, he's got $1,200. He's got a wife and 2 kids. It's going to cost him even if it just costs him $10, only $10, which doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but it costs him $10 to buy a ticket to a wrestling show. That means that for him, his wife, and his 2 kids, it's $40 right off the bat. $40 out of that $1,200. That sound like maybe he might want to think about what he spends his money on?
Yeah.
And do you think that maybe he might want to make sure that he gets what he paid to see when he goes to a wrestling show?
I agree.
And how is that different now than it was 3 years ago when he was making $30,000 or $25,000 a year and he had a wife and 2 kids then?
Yeah.
And the only difference now is that a ticket to some of these wrestling shows is $25, $30, $40,
right,
or more.
Right. Well, Al Snow,
so
you have.
How much more important is it to make sure you give the guy what he paid to see? And what he paid to see was to believe in what the work is. And the work is that the only thing that's fake is the outcome. So he's paid to believe that outcome isn't predetermined so that he can then get emotionally involved in what you're doing in the ring, because what you're doing in the ring actually seems to matter because it has a consequence, and the consequence is that somebody could win and somebody could lose, instead of it just being indiscriminate action with paint by numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 step matches. Thank you.
Again, like I said earlier, you were preaching, and you've given great insight. A lot of the fans here in the chat room and on the PWR show shout box are really learning a lot from really the dissection that you've done of the business right now, and for that we obviously appreciate it. And that's why we put forth the effort to bring talents on and simply let them talk and get that word out there, because
educate.
And that's important. I mean, we've had a lot of interviews and we've had a lot of people on this show. And a lot of times it's been, about other things as opposed to what is the going on in professional wrestling, whether it be good or bad at this point in time. And you've really given an insight that we have not seen in a very long time.
And it's actually one of the reasons why, and we have a lot of the marks, if you will, that are on the internet, in the internet wrestling community, always talking about Ring of Honor this, Ring of Honor that. To be honest, the reason WWE does what it does is because they put out there who you want to see. You pay to see those big names, and they'll argue about the best wrestling match. Oh, that happens in Ring of Honor. But I'd actually pay to see the guys that are in the top show.
Well, WWE, they're trying to appeal to the largest audience. Think about this, okay, guys? You want to make money, okay? Mm-hmm. That's what wrestling's about. It's about making money, okay? And the way you make money is you try to sell the most tickets. Now, the way you sell the most tickets is you try to appeal to the largest portion of the audience. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I forget what the population of the United States is.
About 365 million.
365 million. Let's just say it's Milwaukee. Okay, Dave Hero, because you run Milwaukee. What's the population of Milwaukee?
650,000.
650,000. $650,000. 650,000 people. That's a potential audience of 650,000 people. Okay? And the way that the wrestling business now is geared you've got a potential audience of 650,000 people. How many people do you think have internet access of that 650,000? Now, keep in mind
75
that
to 80%.
if internet was as over as it is, then why do they need to go on another medium such as radio or television to tell you how over it is?
Yeah,
you're right.
Okay, so how many people do you think? Let's just say it's half. Let's say it's 325,000. What do you say, guys?
Sure, I'd be higher on the half, but
I think
let's just be generous and say it's 325,000 people in Milwaukee that have internet access.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind that I've been doing this for 27 years, and that and out of 27 years, almost 21, 22 of those 27 years, it's been my sole means of income.
Yeah,
it's been the way I've fed my family. It's the way I've kept a roof over my head. It's the way I've
it's the way you've gotten lost in your house.
Yes, it's that too. Yes, but 21 to 22 years, this is the way I live. This is the way I feed myself. Now, considering that, my internet experience consists of online banking, answering email, an occasional porn site, and buying watches off eBay.
Wait, did you say watching porn on eBay?
Occasional porn site.
Yeah. What did I not mention in that?
Wrestling dirt sheets and wrestling commentary and wrestling in general.
Nothing wrestling at all.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing. Now, I do it for a living, have done it for a living, and need to do it for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't care. I don't go on it.
Yeah.
So if I don't go on it, tell me what a percentage of your audience, of your potential audience of 325,000 people actually go on it and are concerned enough to check the website and to dictate how they spend their money for a wrestling show based upon an opinion of what was the best match and who's the greatest performer.
Less than 5%, less than 2%, less
Okay,
than 1%.
well now, instead of 650,000 people that you could possibly have at your show, you've now got maybe, 1,000?
Right.
How is that smart business? That makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm. No,
but you're going,
No, you're right. I mean, no, it doesn't. I'm getting yelled at by our producer here. That's why. You're right. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you've got to appeal to the masses. That's what WWE does, obviously. TNA is trying to do as well.
And that was ECW's downfall. That's now what is becoming Ring of Honor's downfall, is that you're trying to appeal to too small an audience. And, yeah, that small audience is going to pat you on the back and tell you how great the matches were and blah, 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 blah. But financially, at the end of the day, when you've made that investment as far as renting a building and investment of TV time and
radio,
newspaper, et cetera, insurance, when you've made all of those investments, you want that money back, and you're not going to get that money back if you're only worried about, instead of 650,000 people, you're worried about only a couple thousand. And WWE is very good at worrying about 650,000 people instead of just a couple thousand, even though they do make the same mistake of allowing too much, a lot of times, that smaller percentage of the audience to dictate a lot of things of what they do. So.
Well, Al Snow, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Sorry, guys, and I apologize for ranting. And
no, you haven't.
No, hey, you know what? Al's a little nervous.
Right, you can tell.
He's getting married this week.
And please understand, guys, it's not because I know everything. I realized I made those mistakes, in my own career, and I know where these mistakes of focusing on the wrong things and trying to have the best match instead of having a match that does good business and sells tickets has cost me a lot of opportunities. So, that's where I, now try to pass that where, hey, look, I screwed up, so, do yourself a favor and don't try to make them same mistakes that I did.
And Al, we will see you next on March 21st back here in Milwaukee at a Great Lakes Championship Wrestling show. You can get more information for that at
all 650,000 people show up. Come on out
at blizzardbrawl.com. Al Snow, again, our sincerest appreciation and thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
to the Pro Wrestling Report here on 540 ESPN. We've got to take a timeout. Fans, when we come back, we're going to finish out the show, talk a little bit more about wrestling. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Damian Nelson, the man they call Meathead the Cause, and David Hero here in the studio Monday night, February 9, 2009. Thank you for staying with us. Two big stars on the show tonight, Greg Gagne and Al Snow.
Both having 60-minute man.
Both having very profound things to say here on the program. We appreciate both of them coming on to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. We have caught our breath. Not from speaking, obviously, but from trying to keep up with Al. And let's talk about this Sunday on pay-per-view. It's WWE No Way Out, and we're going to run down the card as we know it right now. And obviously the championships will be on the line as this is a pay-per-view. ECW, the first title to be defended, as Jack Swagger goes up against Finley. Meathead, your prediction in that matchup?
Jack Swagger and his very unbalanced teeth are going to retain the ECW.
David Hero.
Without a doubt, Jack Swagger.
Obviously, JBL and Shawn Michaels getting into a matchup a little earlier than we would have anticipated. I thought this would go to WrestleMania before we saw them actually get into this matchup. But, Dave Hero, your thoughts on a winner in that contest?
I like JBL than the challenge at WrestleMania, a career match.
Ooh.
Yeah. JBL's career?
Shawn Michaels.
Because, first he owns the name, then he'd own the entire career. And then, of course, all or nothing, Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania.
Yeah. I'm going to channel Frank Cosentino on this one and say this is the DQ of the night.
No holds barred matchup between Shane McMahon, who is apparently the most devastated man in WWE right now, and Randy Orton. Meathead, your thoughts?
Shane McMahon will have to put over Randy Orton, but again, we've had this conversation ad nauseum. Shane McMahon shouldn't be wrestling.
David?
Randy Orton in a squash.
The Elimination Chambers. Two of them, one for the World Championship, the other for the WWE Championship. Let's review the one for WWE on SmackDown. Champion Edge will be defending against The Undertaker, Big Show, Triple H, Jeff Hardy, and Vladimir Kozlov.
Boy, you'd almost have to think that Edge would retain the title to set up a Triple H Edge WrestleMania match.
That seems to be the winning consensus amongst the IWC.
But, excuse me, how does Triple H get into the main event then? What does he win?
Because Edge is going to, it'll be a screw job finish where Triple H gets this, Yeah, you watch. Maybe Edge takes the sledgehammer at Triple H.
Ooh, don't care about that one. I actually care about the Raw one. By the way, Edge retains.
The Raw one?
Yeah.
That's the worst match ever.
Because I want to see something important happen.
Champion John Cena versus Chris Jericho versus Rey Mysterio, Kofi Kingston, Mike Knox, and Kane. Dave Hero, worst match ever, but who do you think walks out with the win?
It has to be John Cena to make him strong for Randy Orton.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about the power of Mike Knox's beard. Apparently there's the cure to cancer buried inside of it. So Mike Knox is not going to win. You thought I was going to say yes. No, it's John Cena. He's going to go in the WrestleMania against Orton.
Orton? Here's a who?
Yes.
Let's go to that's WWE No Way Out this Sunday on pay-per-view. WrestleMania will get shaped up at that event coming up this Sunday. Let's go to the VI3. Each week we choose our top 3 superstar in professional wrestling and our tag team spot and a female spot as well. And let's go now to the man they call Meathead, who is never prepared but always ready.
And here we go. My single wrestler of the week is Randy Orton because I'm still into the song, even though we heard it 4 times tonight.
You heard it 4 times.
Yeah, not to mention the time
we were bothered by it 3 times.
Yeah. My female of the week, even though she wasn't on TV, I am going to call out Mickie James. Mickie, where are you, my lovely lady? I'm thinking Arby's. And my tag team of the week is Priceless.
Priceless! David Hero.
My singles is Al Snow. My tag team is the High Flyers.
For taking over PWR.
Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to go with Melina as my lady of the week.
Your
Good
lady
choices.
of the night?
Yeah. For me, the one you all clamored to the show to listen to tonight. Number 1 is Chris Jericho. Number 2 is ODB. Number 3 goes to Beer Money Incorporated.
We got to get ODB to do an interview with Frank again.
I'm not sure he will. Actually, when we renewed his contract, there was a provision in there saying that he would not do another interview with Jess Dalton, ODB.
Jess Dalton was in Roadhouse.
You're right.
I know.
Absolutely.
That's where she got it from.
Ron White did a nice skit about Roadhouse. So he's talking about getting kicked out of a bar in New York City.
The song 3 minutes and we're out of here means we're almost out of time.
Fans, there's another episode of PWR TV.
Also, I got this quick
Shut up,
update
we're almost
from the
out of
Shadow
time.
Sphere. Al Snow is now hiding in Mike Knox's beard.
Pro Wrestling Report TV this Wednesday at PWRshow.com. This Friday, right after SmackDown, on Time Warner Cable's Channel 14. Make sure you tune in. We're going to talk about No Way Out in great detail and also talk about the Jericho situation. Video, in case you don't know what's going on, video is available at pwrshow.com. We'd like to thank our guests, Greg Gagne and Al Snow. Also our hosts for this evening, Frank Cosentino, the Cos, the man they call Meathead, David Hero, and myself. I'm going to spend the next week nursing my cold, and we will invite you to join us again next Monday night right here on 540 ESPN for the Pro Wrestling Report. So long, everyone.